Happy Thanksgiving week of football. Today, we have a jam-packed show. Amir and I, we're going to go through one thing that every NFL team should be thankful for, whether they've had a good or bad season. Of course, we also have our week 13 picks, power rankings, and more. Grab your popcorn. Let's get into it. All right, kick it off here in the AFC North. Amir, I'm going to run through these. If you want to talk about something, of course, just let me know, and we'll, of course, discuss anything that you want to talk about. For Pittsburgh, you have Mike Tomlin. For Baltimore, you have two MVPs in Lamar and Derrick Henry. For Cincy, Joe Burrow, the Browns, your franchise cornerstones. I know it hasn't been pretty, but you still have Wyatt Teller, Myles Garrett, Evan Stefanski, which is still a good coach. You have your building blocks going forward. In the AFC South, for Houston, you have the talent. Even though Stephon Diggs went down, you have the talent around CJ Stroud to make some noise there in the AFC. For Indy, Anthony Richardson has regained confidence. Tennessee, your current draft position, and same can be said there about Jacksonville. Right now, Jacksonville looks like they have the number one pick on lockdown.
I do want to talk about Jacksonville for a second.
Let's do it.
So, Jacksonville is in a very interesting spot here, mostly because it's like, if you get that number one pick, you're not going to get a quarterback. You got Trevor Lawrence. You already paid him. That's your franchise guy. And so it's like now it's like, do you go ahead and you lean towards like getting Will Campbell and old lineman, or you lean towards getting Travis Hunter a skill position? And honestly, I mean, Jacksonville has been struggling with this for the past 3 or 4 years since T.Law has been in the league, where it's like they have these favorable draft positions and draft spots, and they're honestly in a spot where it's like really they aren't necessarily just completely depleted in every single area to where it's like I don't know for them. I don't know.
No, I completely understand there. Of course, do you address the offensive line? Do you stick with Trevor Lawrence? What do you do for Jacksonville? Amir, I can tell you one thing that they're doing. They're getting rid of Doug Peterson, right? They got to move on to the next chapter. In the AFC East, more is less. That theory for the Buffalo Bills has worked. You got rid of Stephon Diggs, and you're way better this year. Josh Allen, of course, protecting the football is a big part of that. Miami, Tua is finally back. When he was out, I think we realized he is the most valuable player on this Dolphins team. For the Jets, it's the same as the Browns. You have a lot of young talent on this team that you can use as building blocks going forward. And for New England, it is your number 3 overall pick in Drake May. That's always a good sign to see. For Kansas City, you have a chance at history. I think that's self-explanatory. For the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, he's changed these things. He's changed the trajectory of this franchise seemingly overnight with the talent that they've already had. For Denver, Bo Nix, he's turned the corner. Maybe he's the rookie of the year at the moment.
Hey, rookie of the year, Bo Nix.
Do you think that this recent stretch of Bo Nix is better than the first half of the year that we saw from Jayden Daniels? That's my question to you.
I'm gonna be completely honest. Given the fact that Denver has I say this. Honestly, I'll probably give more credit towards Jayden Daniels because it's a lot harder to come in and play at an elite level off rip. But Bonus is playing great right now, and it's a lot easier when you can rely on a top 5 defense in the league. On top of that, so I kind of show some grace towards Jayden Daniels because that Washington defense can be a little iffy at times. But the thing that's most impressive is like Denver really doesn't have much firepower on offense. Like it's kind of just like a consistent of like average talent, and Bo Nix is playing like a true vet right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, if he could play like this, I think there's no doubt he should take home that award at the end of the season. But I think, honestly, Amir, I think this year the award's really going to come down to the last impression, right? Because, hey, Caleb's been doing good the last couple of weeks. Maybe he gets in this mix and has a good second half of the season. And then you really got to debate on who, do you prefer the first half of the year, the middle, or the last half? Again, it should be a fun race no matter what. Now, for Vegas, Aiden O'Connell was just announced as your quarterback 1 throughout the remainder of the season, but I think he's not what you're thankful for. You're thankful for Shedeur Sanders. Why is that? Well, again, after every single loss that the Raiders have, coincidentally, Shedeur Sanders is tweeting certain things, hinting that he wants to be the next Raiders quarterback. Also, Al Davis, the owner, has already basically told Shedeur, if you're there, we're going to take you. In the NFC, it's North here. Detroit, you're thankful for your mindset, man. They have a no prisoners mindset. They don't take anybody lightly. They don't play down to any competition like a team like Philly used to do. Detroit just goes in there and kicks your ass. Doesn't matter who you are, if you're good, bad, or in between. For Minnesota, their coaching staff, Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, Despite losing some pieces this offseason, it looks like they've added pieces because they've gotten that much better. For Green Bay, you have the two most important positions figured out: the head coach and the quarterback in Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. Now, Jordan Love, side note here, protect the football, man. If you protect the football, this team wins 2 more games. Chicago, Caleb Williams has now regained confidence. Same thing with Anthony Richardson there in Indy. Caleb Williams with the new OC last week, I think was his best game as a pro so far. That should continue going forward, but some tough matchups ahead. Atlanta, it looks like you're on the trajectory to go back to the playoffs for the first time since 2017. For Tampa, Baker's mentality. I mean, you always have a fighter's chance with a guy like that at quarterback, and it's just fun to root for a guy like Baker, whether if you're a Bucks fan or not. For the Saints, you have the best cap manipulators slash GMs known to man. I mean, you're like 50 million in debt right now, but every single year they, change some contracts, reconstructure them. They're always going to find a way to add some talent here to the roster. For Carolina, Bryce Young's recent play, I think after all of this nonsense, Bryce Young might actually you might be comfortable saying that he's the guy for Carolina going forward. Amir, any thoughts about the first half of the NFC?
Honestly, the one thing is about Bryce Young. Bryce Young has looked great. He's honestly looked really impressive these past couple of weeks, especially this past game against the Chiefs. The Chiefs obviously have an elite defense, and he's honestly thrown the ball well, a lot more confidence. It kind of just seems like the pressure is like lifted off of him, and the culture for Carolina is different. Like the whole entire team on both sides of the ball are playing aggressive, fast, and physical. I still think Canals and this GM, should go ahead and draft a quarterback. So, I think at this point, Canals really needs a blank slate. And honestly, I think it'd really be best in Bryce Young's interest to kind of go somewhere else and sort of just kind of be introduced to a whole new situation. But
what do you think about Bryce Young potentially going to the Rams?
Hey, listen,
I learn
brought
from Stafford next year, which might be Stafford's last year.
Yeah, I brought it up months ago. About Bryce Young potentially going there. Honestly, that really would be a pretty good spot for him. I think for the Rams, like if they really see some potential in him, get him now, let him learn and stuff like that. Unless they're fully, set on Stetson Bennett being the guy to kind of pick up after Stafford, but it's like, I mean, we haven't even seen, him play at all. So
yeah, I don't even know if he's the quarterback 2 on the roster. In the NFC East, Saquon Barkley is the guy. I think if there were to be a non-quarterback MVP this year, it's Saquon Barkley. He's setting record after record. He has opened up this offense and seemingly by himself has made the entire roster regain their confidence from that 2022 squad. For Washington, just like Green Bay, you have the 2 most important positions figured out. Is it always sunshine and rainbows? No, but outside of the Chiefs, it never is. Jane Daniels and Dan Quinn are great building blocks going forward. For the Giants, your current draft position, I think you're all the way in the top 3 right now, if not number 2. Stay there, right? Stay there. Put yourself in a position to get your franchise quarterback. For Dallas, money and the market. Some people want to play in big markets. Some people just want the money. And Jerry Jones can provide both of those. Arizona, John Gannon. I understand last week wasn't pretty, but honestly, as a Kyler Murray fan, it was more so on his shoulders than the rest of the team. So Kyler Murray needs to play better, but John Gannon, in year number 2, I know we were questioning, if he was the guy. I think he's proved this year that he is. For the Rams, it's Sean McVay. To me, second best coach in the league. And honestly, if I had to build a franchise, this has been my answer for years. I'm picking Sean McVay. For Seattle, you have so much young talent on defense. Have they played up to that potential this year? No, but guys like Devin Witherspoon, right? I'm forgetting the other corner, Amir. Please remind me in a second.
Tariq Woolen.
I'm sorry?
Tariq Woolen.
Tariq Woolen, right. Byron Murphy up front. You have other younger pieces on this defense. My point is that I think they have the potential to build somewhat of that Legion of Boom back up here with a more dominant front 7 here going forward. I really like Byron Murphy. He just hasn't been healthy. For San Fran, when healthy, any given Sunday should be their mentality. When healthy with Brock Purdy leading the charge, as much as I don't want to admit it, they got a chance against anybody, Amir. Any thoughts on the second half of the NFC, the East here in the West?
Really, San Fran, man, like San Fran, I'm gonna be honest. I was looking at, San Fran's schedule, and it's like, San Fran is in a really, really tough spot right now, man. And it's like, it's been past years where San Fran starts off 5-6 or, or with a losing record, but it's like, man, like the end of the year, I mean, they got Buffalo, that's going to be tough. This week, Chicago, that's a tough defense. They got the Rams. the Dolphins in Miami. They got Detroit, and then the Cardinals. And so, like, if San Fran wants to really get going, they got to speed this thing up.
Yeah. Again, you seemingly can't lose another game, right? Because even last year we had some 10
Yeah.
win teams miss the playoffs. San Fran can't lose another one. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get to double digit wins. But that is, of course, one thing that every NFL team, at the bare minimum, should be thankful for at this point in their seasons. And Amir, any last thoughts about this experiment? I'm doing it. I did it on the NBA here this past Tuesday.
No last thoughts.
All right, well, let's get into it. And I do want to throw this out there. We're recording this a little bit early, of course, on Tuesday because Amir and I were going to be busy, of course, just like all of you here on Thursday. So you guys might even get this episode on Tuesday night or Wednesday, regardless, right? We'll always update you guys in the comments. But let's get into it here. Big Thanksgiving week. A lot of things have changed. And let's get into our weekly power rankings, starting with the Denver Broncos. Amir, you as well have them at number 10 to spoil your list. But the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton, they found their point guard. They have found their quarterback in Bo Nix. And like we briefly talked about, he might be on the trajectory to steal this rookie of the year after Jaden Daniels' electric start. But it doesn't matter who the running back is, who the wide receivers are that are producing. Bo Nix is getting them over the top due to Sean Payton's scheme, and the defense is doing their job. Now, I will say trap game here against Cleveland on Monday night. Let's take care of business, Denver, and of course, continue making your statement because that's right now. I mean, you also have Pat Surtain that has an argument to be the defensive player of the year, in my opinion, right? Will he win it? Probably not, but again, he's in the argument. At 8 and 9, these teams stay in their same exact spots. Green Bay picked up a win. They stay there again against the team, against San Fran, who wasn't fully healthy. I can't really move you up or down because they were missing so many of their star players. For the Chargers, you lost a game that I predicted you to win against Baltimore in ugly fashion. Honestly, Amir, I'll say this. If Quentin Johnston had hands like on him,
Yeah.
I think the Chargers probably win that game. If not, make it a lot more interesting than it was. At 7, Pittsburgh, you lost to Cleveland. It was a trap game, ugly weather. George Pickens seemingly thought that the weather was only affecting Pittsburgh in that game. Regardless, Mr. Unlimited is what, 3-1 or 4-1 as the Pittsburgh starter. They're fine. Mike Tomlin doesn't lose back-to-backs, and they're on the road against Cincy. Big test this game with another divisional matchup. The 9-2 Minnesota Vikings are at number 6, and they have Arizona this week. But last week, again, what have they won? 3 in a row yet again after having a couple shaky weeks. Sam Darnold has, I guess, refined his play, protecting the football more these last couple of weeks, and they look scary yet again. At 4 and 5, we have a flock of birds, right? We have Baltimore at 4, Philly at 5, and they play each other this week. And now we'll talk about it later in my predictions, but the reason I have a team at 4 instead of 5 is, well, that kind of a spoiler. I think Baltimore is going to win. And my top 3 stays the exact same. Now, Detroit at 1, clear-cut number 1. They should be that the remainder of the year, but Chicago could be a trap game. I want to get into that later. Kansas City at 2, Buffalo at 3, even though Buffalo beat Kansas City. How many times are we going to have to see that in regular season before we learn Kansas City's just a better team? And when it matters most, Kansas City's going to win. Amir, you have the same 9 and 10 as me. 2 AFC West teams that enter your list. I think maybe the first time all year for both of these teams in your top 10.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, really that 9 and 10 spot. I mean, I can't put Houston in there because they looked absolutely terrible this past week. And also Washington, Washington took a huge step back. But at my 10th spot, I have Denver. You brought up a great point, man. Bo Nix is playing lights out, playing amazing. The defense is absolutely great. I'd say outside of that week against Baltimore, against that crazy defense, the defense has been absolutely crazy. The Chargers at my 9 spot. I mean, Herbert's playing amazing. He's playing good. I wouldn't say last night's game against the Ravens, I wouldn't say they would have won if Quentin Johnston to catch. But hey, listen, that first drop where he had about like 20 yards worth of space, honestly, that catch would have changed the whole entire path of the game. The entire path of the game. At my 8th spot, I got Minnesota. It's crazy for Minnesota because it's like, this Minnesota team these past few weeks, like it's ugly at times, but they're still winning. They're still finding ways to win. It's still just amazing coaching. And, I think, if Sam Darnold can somewhat get back to what he was in those first, 4-week stretch of games at the beginning of the year, I think Minnesota could really be a true contender. But it's like, I still have them at 8 because I wholeheartedly believe, every team that's above them have just been playing better. At my seventh spot, I have Pittsburgh. They dropped down 3 spots. Just for the simple fact, I think every team above them has played better. It's that simple. But honestly, Russ is fine. The offense is fine. The defense is fine. They play Cincy this week, where even if they lose against Cincy, it still won't affect me too much because it's at Cincy. We know how good Joe Burrow and his offense is.
Yeah, I will
At my
say
sixth,
3 spots out of the first 4 have been the exact same as mine. So we think alike. But continue. 6 here,
yeah.
Green Bay.
At my sixth spot, Green Bay. Jordan Love is great. The whole entire team is great. Even if Jordan Love is out or playing iffy, Green Bay still wins games. This team forces turnovers, and yeah, that's really it. At my fifth spot, I have Baltimore. I really believe this Baltimore offense can honestly score on anybody. And I brought it up last week where it's like the Chargers defense is great, but I was like, hey, listen, Baltimore might start off slow. Once that second half hit, Baltimore really could score on any defense, no matter what. And this team is amazing on all 3 levels. At my fourth spot, I have Philly, man. Philly against the Rams, man, torched them. And we all know the Rams defense is obviously really struggling. But the most impressive part is how much better Philly's defense is, man. And last year, Philly's defense was their downfall. Obviously, the offensive play calling was bad. But this year, the whole entire secondary has had a huge jump. The biggest thing that they made was going ahead and throwing in Cooper DeJean and benching the vet and letting DeJean develop. Because last week, against Cooper Kupp in the slot, he had him in prison.
Yes.
He had him in prison.
Outside of a couple of big plays. Yeah.
Right. At my 3 spot, I have Buffalo. Buffalo dropped down the spot.
Why is that? Why is that? Because you had them above KC last week. Why does a shaky win against Carolina move them down?
I did it. And, for Buffalo, I kind of thought about it this past week when I made my power rankings, and you honestly brought it up where it's like, it's kind of different than last year where it's like KC at this point in the year, had maybe like 4 or 5 losses and they were playing terrible. But it's like KC has only lost once, even though every game has been close. Even though Buffalo beat them, I'm still putting all my chips on Kansas City at my number 2 spot. 1 spot, Detroit, by no surprise.
Yeah, no surprise there. And again, I'm happy I was able to convince you. That's kind of what it's all about. 9-4 for the both of us last week. I was contemplating maybe changing my pick from the Chargers to Baltimore, but I said I got greedy and I wanted to get a 2-game lead on you for the week. But of course, Baltimore was able to get it done on Monday night in the Harbaugh Bowl. John stays undefeated against his younger brother Jim. On the season, I'm at about 68%, a mere 66 5-game difference. And again, we're going to run this all the way through the Super Bowl, where we're hopefully trying to get either 70% or 200 wins. Maybe we get both of them, right? Maybe we get lucky. But let's get into the slate here. Now, again, I want to remind you, it's Thanksgiving week of football. On Thursday, we have 3 different games. On the early slate at noon, we have Detroit and Chicago. Could be a fun divisional matchup there. The Giants and Dallas. Unless you are a fan of one of these teams, you are not watching this game. This is the perfect time at 4:30 to go eat dinner with the family. Eat dinner, right? Go socialize. Go pretend like you like some of your in-laws. And that's the perfect time to eat dinner is what I'm basically trying to say. But I mean, hey, Cooper Rush versus Tommy DeVito. Maybe that turns into a classic. Miami and Green Bay in very snowy conditions will close off the night. Again, Miami, I have a stat later on, Amir, but Tua struggles on the road. And I have, when we get to our best bets, stay tuned for that. I have a very important stat that I want to show you guys. But Tua struggles. And Miami, again, traveling to Green Bay, it doesn't look great for them. So we have Detroit, Dallas, and Green Bay, the 3 home teams taking care of business on Thanksgiving night. Now, Kansas City and Vegas on the first ever, I believe, Black Friday game, if not the only one this year. KC, of course, no surprise, should win that one against Aiden O'Connell. Moving into Sunday, we have Houston beating Jacksonville. Is Lawrence going to be back? Is he not? I don't know. We'll have to stay, on the lookout for that. But we have Houston regardless. Indy, New England, tough matchup there. We both kind of went back and forth, but Indy, we're going to have winning that one. Chargers and Atlanta. Chargers are favored on the road after a short week heading cross country to Atlanta. Amir, are you still confident in this pick here? Because again, Atlanta's had 2 weeks to prep for the Chargers.
Honestly, I have no idea, and I'm gonna make this. If I do change it, it's gonna be like right before game time because the Chargers have looked great, and everything is saying that they should win. But Atlanta's basically fighting for not only beating Tampa Bay to win the division, but also to avoid losing three straight.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that Jim Harbaugh and this Chargers team loses two straight with how well they
Yeah,
play. But honestly, I might be with you. We might
yeah,
both change our pick to Atlanta here at home.
yeah,
And they're desperate, more so than the
right,
Chargers for a playoff spot
yeah,
here and again
right.
win the division. The last game in the early slate, we have Seattle going to the Jets. Amir, we have no idea who's going to win this game.
I have no idea.
I
I
mean,
don't
we don't know
know.
what version of the Jets we're getting. Is Aaron Rodgers even going to be starting? I mean, the closer we get to this game, the more so it seems like the Jets are just going to put him on IR and basically cut him. All right. And Aaron Rodgers is going to be either have to retire or go on to a new team. That'll be an interesting offseason conversation. But, if I'll say this, if we get the version of Seattle from the last 2 weeks, I think they rout the Jets here, Amir, even though they're on the road.
Yeah, yeah.
Moving over to the late game slate, we have Washington beating Tennessee. Pittsburgh on the road beating Cincinnati, or excuse me, Pittsburgh's on the road versus Cincinnati. I'm taking Pittsburgh. It's hard to imagine that Mike Tomlin loses two straight games. And I just think that defense is going to get at Joe Burrow and affect his game overall. But you have Cincy there. Why do you have Cincy beating Pittsburgh?
I brought it up earlier. Since he is desperate, at the same time, I have no idea who's going to win this game either. I'm gonna be honest. Like it's really about like 5 games on the slate where I absolutely have no idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again,
It's tough.
it's tough, especially this late in the year when you don't know if I mean this is kind of like the breaking point for a lot of teams, whether
Yeah.
if they extend their gap and get very comfortable in the playoff scene, or they kind of drop back here again into next year's. I guess that's their focus is the following year in the offseason. Arizona on the road versus Minnesota. Arizona, if they play like they did last week, there's no chance they have a shot here against Minnesota. But if they play like they did before the bye week against teams like San Fran and etc., this should be a very fun one. High scoring shootout, but I think it's going to be big Justin Jefferson game. We have the Rams beating New Orleans, Tampa Bay on the road beating Carolina. We are split on this Philly Baltimore game, but San Fran, we have losing to Buffalo. Does if Brock Purdy is back, does that change your opinion on that Sunday night game?
Not really, man. I brought it up last week where it's like this San Fran team just looks a lot different, a lot slower, a lot less gritty and physical. And I think for Purdy, even if he does come back, I mean, he's not going to be fully healthy. His throwing shoulders messed up. At the same time, Kittle's still banged up. Debo has taken a step back, and the defense has been bad. So I'm taking Buffalo.
Yeah. Monday Night Football, we're Browns fans, and at this point, I think we want Cam Ward or Shador more so than whatever else we're going to get the remainder of the year. I don't want these petty wins, right? Let's just beat Baltimore maybe and win some of these divisional games. Outside of that, I don't want to win another game. Denver at home, tough environment. Maybe it's snowy. They should be able to take care of business in that one. The last thing we want to touch on here in the late 4 o'clock slate is this Philly Baltimore matchup. Amir, is this the game of the year? I do want to say Lamar Jackson's 24-1 against NFC opponents. He's at home here. They're fighting for their division, and they just got a huge win against the Chargers. That is kind of the reason why I'm rolling with Baltimore in this one. But your thoughts on that matchup?
I'm gonna be honest. I'll probably end up switching to Baltimore, but I not only got to catch up to you as far as my record, but man, this is
We got
gonna
a
be a
long
great
season there.
matchup.
We got playoffs as well.
Yeah, but like, man, this is gonna be a great matchup. I keep bringing it up. This Philly defense has looked elite these past few weeks, but man, this Baltimore offense is scoring anybody. Even though Philly's run defense and pass defense is lights out, man. Like we saw last week, Kyren Williams, rush crazy against this Philly defensive front to start the game off. I think Derrick Henry might rush for 120 on them.
I was going to ask you over under 250 rushing yards from Derrick Henry and Saquon in this matchup.
Oh man. Honestly, I'll probably lean towards under.
Under.
Because as bad as this Baltimore's defense is, Baltimore's
That,
run defense has been amazing the entire year. And so I think for Philly, I think this is a really big AJ Brown game, Devontae Smith game, if he's back as well.
yeah. Again, game of the year potentially there, but again, this is what we talked about the other day. To me, when I look at this matchup, it feels like last year when we had San Fran and Baltimore on Monday Night Football, where we thought, hey, this is going to be game of the year. And then Baltimore just blew the doors off of San Fran last year. I don't know if it's going to be Baltimore or Philly that's doing the blowing out process, but I think this game's not going to be as close as people think. I think it's going to be very one sided, just like we had last year with that San Fran and Baltimore matchup. Now let's get to our favorite bets on the week. Player props, Amir, and I didn't necessarily specify this to you before, but I wanted to strictly focus on these Thanksgiving games. So all of my bets here today are going to be
Oh,
on the
okay.
Thanksgiving slate. Again, that was not something that I even brought up to your attention beforehand. But if you're interested in only betting on Thanksgiving games this week, I think I got you covered. I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs at home. Again, a late game. Should be snowy conditions against a subpar Miami Dolphins run defense. I'm going to have him going over 69.5 rushing yards. I got this line over on FanDuel, if that matters. Of course, you can always take an alternate line, but I think Josh Jacobs is going to get this with ease. He hasn't gone under this line in in almost 6 to 7 weeks, Amir. So I like Josh Jacobs there against Miami. What is your player prop on the
So
week?
my player prop is CJ Stroud throwing for 2 TDs. I think this week against Jacksonville, it's a great bounce back game for him. Despite him throwing 2 interceptions last week, he also threw for two TDs as well. Against an elite Titans defense, and I really think that having Nico Collins back just brings so much gravity too. Like last week, the Titans were trying to bracket him, trying to follow him around,
Yep.
but it's like Stroud still found the different guys open, and he still forced the ball to Nico as well. So.
Yeah. My question to you, Amir, here is silly. Okay. I want to preface this is a silly question. But there's been a lot of, I guess, narrative going around about CJ Stroud. He's had a bit of a sophomore slump this year. Do you think he's still a top 10 level quarterback, despite the subpar year that he's had? I guess
So
again, compared to the historic year that he had last year.
yeah, so for me, I want to say like this past summer when me and you both made our quarterback rankings, I want to say I had him right outside the top 10, just because me, I hate recency bias. I hate jumping the gun and sort of just like putting guys in the top 10. For me, if he is top 10, he's on the lower end, and my
I
biggest
agree.
concern coming into this year, what's the simple fact that when guys go in their second year, teams have tape on you, and honestly, like if this team doesn't have Joe Mixon rushing for over 100 yards, this offense just looks completely just like still sometimes. It's hard for Stroud to get in a rhythm. And it's crazy because last year it was the complete opposite. Like last year, the run game was completely up and down, and
Non-existent.
Stroud aired the ball out, took care of the football, and dotted teams up. But it's like, man, I say for those 3 to 4 weeks when Mixon was out, the offense looked completely down. And it's like last week against Tennessee, the run game wasn't working, and Stroud struggled.
Yeah, what all I hear is that they didn't give Dameon Pierce, the Florida legend, a chance. Maybe they would have ran the ball better last year. Of course, I'm joking. Dameon Pierce is terrible. Now let's get into our favorite spread pick on the week, and this was that stat I was mentioning. Tua is 6-13 in his career when the game is under 70 degrees. So it is not always like if it's just super cold, he sucks. When it's not even when it's under 70, he has a way below 500 record. But on the flip side, again, he's 23-4 in games of 70 plus degrees. So home field is definitely a big factor for Tua Tagovailoa. But Amir, what is your spread pick on the week?
So my favorite spread of the week, and I think this number is way too low, is Green Bay at -3.5. I think Green Bay wins by almost 2 scores. And
I
you brought
agree.
up a great stat, and also it's crazy because the entire Dolphins franchise, it's a stat where it's like in the past 20 years, like they're 15-43 in games under 40 degrees, and also in two screens 0-7 under 40 degrees. And this game is probably going to be freezing, snowing, and cold, and I think Green Bay completely mops them.
Exactly. And now again, I hate to do this, but this is how much I like the line. I'm going to copy you. I think Green Bay wins by two
I love
scores,
it.
like you mentioned. I mean, honestly, you might even want to flirt with the idea. Now again, unit size appropriately. Um, maybe take this alternate line to like -6.5, right? Or maybe 5.5 to win by 6 points. Again, you'll get plus money in that regard, but I like that spread pick as well. Again, trying to focus on the Thursday game slate. Favorite over-unders on the week. I'm going to go with the same exact matchup. I think it's going to be under. I think this is going to be a game where it's like 24 to, let's say, 17, 24-13, where Green Bay comes out on top. Of course, that is not over 48.5 points. So that is my favorite over-under on the week, Amir, at least in the Thursday Thanksgiving slate. You, on the other hand, you have a play from the 4 o'clock window, if I'm not mistaken. And which one is that?
So my matchup, the Seahawks versus the Jets over 41.5 points. I think this game is going to get loose. I would say though, what's kind of concerning about this line is that this Seahawks defense has looked great these past couple of weeks, but At this point, the Jets are desperate. I keep bringing up, they're desperate. Everything is pointing towards them to lose because they've been losing games they shouldn't have lost the whole entire year. But this offense honestly looked good, and the defense has looked terrible. So I think both should be able to score.
No questions there. Now, Amir, I didn't even tell you I was going to do this before the show, but I just wanted to throw it out there. Now, I wouldn't recommend this, but I mean, hey, if you like these picks just as much as we do, why not? You try and go out there and throw them in a parlay. For Amir, if you threw all your picks in a parlay, it'd be plus 555, right? So incredible odds there if you want to take that. Or, like Amir and I like to do, you can always take some alternate lines, bring this down to maybe plus 300, and then boom, you got 3-1 odds here for your money. Amir, did you think it was going to be as high as 555?
I definitely did not. I might do it myself right now.
Might even take an alternate line, right? Now, for me, it's a bit crazier, but that's just because of the under that I took. And of course, when you take unders, your odds always skyrocket. But for my parlay, it would be plus 818. Absolutely insane. If I were to take this, I'd probably take an alternate line just to be safe on that Miami and Green Bay over. Maybe bring it up to like 52 and a half and take the under. It still should be about plus 500 odds to match Amir. Last thing here. Now, if your team sucks, this is your favorite segment. We're Browns fans. We won, but we still suck. And of course, actually, we're not on the right side of the screen here. We dropped all the way down to 7, Amir, or 8, I believe, here in the current draft order. But the race for Travis, Jacksonville stays at 1. They should be there the remainder of the year. The Giants at 2, Vegas at 3, New England moves back into the top 5, and so does Carolina. Any thoughts on these 5 teams, Amir? They all pretty much suck.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, man. Shador might go to New York, to be honest. With Malik Neighbors, and I really wouldn't be the most worst situation personally. My biggest concern, obviously, is the coaching with Brian Dable, but it's like, I mean, Shador in New York would not be a bad idea.
I got a question for you, and this is just something that sparked into my mind right now. I was just looking at the quarterback situation of these teams, right? Of course, Bryce Young, Drake May, you have Aiden O'Connell or Minshew there in Vegas. You have DeVito or Drew Lock and Trevor Lawrence. Who do you think's the best quarterback out of these 5 teams? Do you think it's Drake May or Trevor Lawrence or Bryce Young?
I'm gonna still say T-Law for sure.
I agree. I think let's
Yeah.
let's get to this point next year before let's say T-Law has another bad start to next year and Drake May continues to ascend. That's when I would be ready to.
Hey, man, Drake May looks amazing.
Look, Amir, he was my favorite quarterback in the draft process for a reason. I thought he could be Trevor. I thought he could be Justin Herbert. I thought that was my comp for him was Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Now again, I didn't think he'd be better.
Sure.
I didn't think he'd be better than a guy like Caleb. But again, Caleb has all the pressure in the world on him, and Drake May also didn't have to start from day number 1. So let's give Caleb and Jaden time, as well as Bo Nix now apparently. And I think this is going to be a very fun quarterback class when we look back on things. Episode 230. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday, so you guys will probably see this either Tuesday night or Wednesday. Regardless, last thing I want to say is whether if you're celebrating by yourself, with your friends, families, loved ones, regardless, have fun, but be smart, be safe. It always gets crazy on the roads during the holidays. But I mean, hey, go enjoy some football and eat a lot of food and get fat. Amir, any last thoughts before we get out of here? And of course, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
So no last thoughts, man. Thanksgiving is a great day. You get to eat, take a nap, wake back up, and watch football.
Eat more.
I love it.
Right. Last thing here, favorite Thanksgiving dish. It could be a dessert. It can be I guess a starter. It could be a main dish. Well, what is your favorite Thanksgiving? Honestly, I'm basic. I'd probably go with stuffing. I like stuffing, right? But I guess it depends on how good the turkey is. Depends on who's making the turkey. That's also a very key thing, right? We always do ham on my mom's side. Ham's always good. But Amir, I'm not a big fan of the desserts here. I'm not a big pie guy, so I kind of sit on that one for Thanksgiving. But yeah, you have one yet before we get out of here?
Hey, so for me, I'm not a big stuffing guy, and I got a hot take, man. Turkey is overrated.
I agree.
Turkey is way too dry. I hate it, But my personal favorite is mac and cheese or yams.
Mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese is always consistent. Always consistent.
I'd have to have your mom's turkey. Maybe it's a lot better than probably what I've had before. Anyway, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. We'll see you guys next week. Go enjoy some football.